Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ignite 2020, our virtual career exploration series. This session is focused on careers that are in the criminal justice field. My name is Stacy Moore. I'm the Director of Career Services, and I just want to start this session by thanking our event sponsor, and that's the Delaware Valley University Alumni Association. All of our panelists are willing to connect with students, so if you'd like to connect individually with one of the panelists, we really do recommend you stay around for the roundtables. Or if unable to, email cspd@delval.edu for our professionals' contact information. Okay, and Nick is going to join us. So as they're coming in, I will introduce them to you all. Just very briefly to let you know who you're going to be hearing from today. So we have Neysa Coy. She is the Chaplaincy Supervisor with Juvenile Justice Commission. And then Nicholas Miller is our Community Specialist at the Academy Community-Based Services. So thank you both so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for the invite.
Of course. So for our students, we're going to get started with just a few questions. I'm actually going to have you both answer this, and we'll start with Neysa first. How has your first job impacted your career and where you are today?
My first job, my first job actually was babysitting. I had my own little business as a teenager, and I enjoyed being around kids. I enjoyed one-on-one. I enjoyed the interactions, the growth, watching them change. So I knew very early on I wanted to be in kind of a psychology field. I did study psychology, and I ended up getting this position with the state. It's under chaplaincy services. So we do work with religions, and we make sure that every religion that is going to be, any religion that the resident wants to practice, we make sure that we have an individual on site that can either meet with them once or call in or do something. As of, with the pandemic now, of course, everybody's calling in, but that's what we do. But I also do counseling. As a matter of fact, I start group counseling next week. So we're redoing this thing. So I do counseling as well.
And Nick, how about you? Let me know if you need me to repeat the question at all too.
I should be okay. Real quick, just repeat the first part of the question.
Sure. So it was, how has your first job impacted your career and where you are today?
Okay. So, I mean, how I got to where I am, similar to the first response, I knew early on that I wanted to work with kids, different ages. I started, early on coaching, and I found pride in having an impact on youth and being able to help, kids of different backgrounds and being a part of their daily life and being able to help them any way I could. And then I found, I moved into BCYC, the Bucks County Youth Center. And while I was there, I really kind of found, this is where I want to, continue with every day, being able to build those relationships and learn about the kids that would come in and out of the center and, help them in any way I could. And, they helped me grow as an individual, and I, tried to help them in return. And then those experiences led me to where I am now in a community-based position where, I'm going to houses every day, and I'm meeting with families and kids every day, and trying to allow them to be successful in school, in their communities, building better relationships in their home life, and being able to do that every day. You find pride in that. So that's kind of how I ended up where I am now.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I'm actually going to ask you a little bit of a follow-up because you mentioned, what you knew you always wanted to do. So I'm curious, can you share some of the ways that your career right now has differed from what you imagined it when you first started out?
Yeah. So when I first, when I first started, it was mostly the things I were doing. I was more focused on, working with kids, and I had an vision of what that was going to be like, and, everything that I was going to do. And, I kind of had a picture of, what things were going to be like. The longer I've worked in this, you learn more. Is a lot of this you have to adapt going into this field. I always kind of thought like, I'm going to do this plan, X, Y, and Z, and then we're going to, get this kid moving. But I've kind of found that when you work with kids, you have to adapt to them and find the things that, work for them and not necessarily me, and try and build off their strengths. So that's kind of how it changed from my initial perceptions. If that helps answer the question at all, from when I first started, a lot of strength-based focus is, how a lot of this work is, and going into that from what I thought, when I first started into this, it was just, helping kids. I'm going to help kids, and I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. But the more I've done this and the longer I've been in this, you realize that it's more about focusing on how you can help them based off their strengths and their family strengths and their surroundings.
Neysa, I saw you nodding, so it seems like you have some similarities there. So maybe your answer will be similar, maybe it'll be different, but I'd actually add for you as well, how has your career either differed or stayed the same from what you imagined?
I actually thought that I would be more into, it's kind of hard. I went into teaching first. So I was like, okay, I want to teach. And then I was like, no, I kind of like working on the one-on-ones better. So that's when I knew I wanted to do psychology, but I just wasn't pushing myself there yet. I was like, I was teaching Spanish. So I was like, I'm just going to stick with this and then figure it out. And then I decided to move on. And since I work in a prison, I work in a juvenile prison, you do learn. And of course, with the psychology background and being who I am, because I am a minority, I'm both being Latinx and female, I learned that, you have to meet the kid where they are. You cannot expect them to rise up to your expectations. And I learned that I'm very grateful I did teach, because that did help me, because I had kids that were like I worked at a behavioral modification school. So what happened was I had kids that were academically on point. I had kids that were delayed, and I had kids that were far more advanced taking college prep courses, but they had behavioral issues. So I had in one classroom, I would have 3 different levels, and I had to learn how to like adjust the lesson to each kid. So it's very similar. You have to do the strengths. You have to ensure that child, or resident rather, where I work, is receiving what they need, but also understanding that you can't force yourself on that or your expectations on that person. So it was the same thing.
Those are great answers. I appreciate that, and really helpful, I think, for the students who are on the call to hear that. And there's some similarities in your answers, which is really interesting as well. I'm curious for both of you, actually. And Neysa, if you want to start this one off, when did you learn and how did you learn about your current career choice, your current industry?
Actually, I kind of fell into my job, like literally. I was working as an in-home counselor prior, and I actually worked out of Trenton. And I was going into the homes. Mercer County in New Jersey is diverse. So you can have areas that are, very low income, and then you have areas that are pretty high income. So I was going through the gamut. It was a very hard job. It was late nights often. And I actually got a ticket when I was driving, and I had to go to court. So I go to court, and lo and behold, my supervisor's there. And he and I got to talking. He's like, actually, he's like, you're bilingual? I'm like, yeah, completely fluent. I'm like, he's like, and he's like, I'm like, yeah, I know the culture, because unfortunately with our residents, because many are minorities as well, they're African American, Black, and Latinos, Latinx, correction, sorry. So that's how I literally fell into my job. He's like, well, send me your resume. And I was like, okay, well, here you go. And before I knew it, I was hired for the state. And I've been with the state now 15 years.
Awesome, thank you. So Nick, how about you? When did you learn and how did you learn about your career choice?
So, I mean, going back to even when I was, a teenager and younger, I was always involved in a lot of community programs, youth programs. I can remember specifically, I used to do BACA every year, and you do things for kids, underprivileged kids. And then as I got older, and I went to Del Val, I was a criminal justice major at Del Val. I had a lot of experience working kind of in social services and social work, and I kind of knew how that field oriented and I knew a lot of people at Montgomery County Children and Youth, because I was doing events that they were putting on over at the Human Resources building there. And really networking is huge. When I started working at BCYC, I got kind of, what it's like to work in a facility like that, a closed facility. And then I kind of had my experiences working in the community, and I kind of thought about my strengths and, the things that I want to do and what I can see myself doing. And I'm a person that's always moving, and I knew I wanted to be in the community, doing things hands-on. So I kind of reached back out to those old connections. And the company I work for now, we're a service provider for Montgomery County Children and Youth. So I got in touch through them, had an interview, and here I am now working for them.
Great, thank you. So this is a little bit of a different type of question, but I think it's a really helpful one for students to hear your answers to. If you could, and Neysa, we'll start with you again, share a brief example of a professional obstacle you faced and how you overcame it.
Professional obstacle, okay. Well, as I said, I work in the juvenile prison. I work mostly with males. And I do recall coming in, and I was gonna start doing individual counseling and some group therapy. And I remember some of the other social workers saying to me, they're like, oh, that kid's not gonna talk. That kid's not gonna talk. That kid's not gonna talk to you. Trust me. They're misogynistic. Trust me, they're not gonna talk to you. I said, okay, all right, no problem. So I went in and I'm thinking, all right, well, going in, you work in a prison, going in that some of these kids are really rough. And I'll tell you, some of my girls are rougher than the boys. But you go in, and as I tell people, a lot of people are like, well, you're so tiny, because I'm really all of 5'1". So they're like, and you're going into these prisons, and how do you feel? And I'm like, listen, these kids don't scare me. I know what they've been up to. I know their record. I know it because it's on file for me to look at. Who scares me are the kids on the street, because I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they're up to. So I remember going in, and I got my 5 boys. And as soon as they walked in, the one that came in, I was told was misogynistic. There were certain things with his religion that he wasn't. Well, he was the fountain of, he was just a fountain. He just it was blah, blah. So you just so like I've said, it's a matter of finding a niche and knowing how to work it. Because I also had another one that they were like, oh, he won't discuss what he's done to be in prison, and what he did, is the basis of what he had to go through counseling for. So he had to know what he did, why he did it. He had to understand the process that made him go do what he did, and then work through it and work a plan to overcome it. he wouldn't talk about it with anybody. I walked in, and first off, he and I connected because we were both Latin. And then the other thing was he was very artistic. So he would try to close up on me, but I also have a really funny sense of humor, I think. So I would just poke fun, and he would laugh. But what I found was I would just throw a pad in front of him and nonchalantly throw a pad in front of him and like a pencil. And before I knew it, he would start doodling. And then as he's doodling, I would ask him questions. And then as I'm asking the questions, he's answering them. And then by the end of the session, he's like, "You got it all out." I'm like, "Yes, I did." It's like next one next week, So I think that was the most. It's trying to find creative ways how to connect and to make sure that you don't. They're prisoners. We call them residents because they're juveniles. So we don't want that stigma to stick. But they're people, and there's a connection, and then you can always find a connection. Not always. I mean, there's some that are just flat out not gonna want anything, but for the most part, if you can find your little niche, and that's where my obstacle. I gotta feel the person out and see what I can connect with, and then hopefully we'll make a connection and build a rapport.
Great. And Nick, I'd be curious for you to answer that same question, if you could just share an example of a professional obstacle and how you've overcome it.
So, I mean, really, it's kind of the same. The way our program works, I'll start with that, is, we receive a referral from probation, Montgomery County Probation or Montgomery County Children and Youth. And once that referral comes in, I get all the information on that youth and the family, and I make a call, and then I just show up at the house to speak with them. And getting that family and that youth on board with what you're trying to help them with can be difficult because you're just showing up. They don't know who you are. They don't know anything about you. They see you as a guy wearing a name badge who's associated with a government agency, and you're just trying to get that youth and that family to, open up to a little bit, to just be able to work with them and get them to understand that, we're all on the same team here, and I'm trying to, build that relationship to get things, in a better spot than where they currently are when we first come on. And, it's not just the youth either. It's also with the, everybody in the family. They have to, you have to be upfront with things and how things are going to go forward. And you have to come in with a plan because, again, you're showing up to somebody's house. And there's a lot of times, I'll be honest, there's a lot of times where you show up and parents, they'll not be very kind to you. And you have to be able to just kind of take that and stay professional the entire time because whenever we have somebody new that comes on with us, I'll always say you have to stay professional from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave, because as soon as you lose your cool, everything's going to blow up. So, it's the most important thing is when we, again, we're showing with these houses, and it can be anywhere, but you have to just, I can even give you an example. The other day, I had to go do a home inspection. When you're going to say, "Can I look into your fridge and make sure you have food?" How's someone going to take that? So you have to be prepared for that and prepare for that reaction to come back at you. And you have to stay professional throughout the entire time. Because again, if I, don't do that, then they're definitely it's going to be worse.
Thank you both. And at this point, we only have one final question before the roundtable. So again, both of you, if you wouldn't mind answering, it's along the same lines, but we'll start with you, Nick, this time. If you could share a brief example of a professional mistake or failure that you faced and what you learned from it.
Double check, triple check, quadruple check. And document everything, because if you don't document it, it might as well not have happened. So it doesn't happen very often, But when it does, and you have no trail of an incident that happened, and you don't have something reported, that's when issues occur. So in this field, anything you do during the day, make sure you document it, because it'll always come back. And if you need it for whatever reason, or if somebody needs it for whatever reason, you have it documented. If an issue happened and you don't have it documented, and you don't have anything that says this youth did that, or even on positive things, like if you didn't document that he did X amount of community service hours, where's the proof that he did it? So you have to document just everything. Never be afraid to do more than it's, doing too much isn't always a bad thing, especially when it comes to documentation, and checking, making sure you cover all your bases in that aspect.
Great. Neysa, how about you?
I have to piggyback off of that. It's true. I dot my I's, I cross my T's. There are times when things get really hectic and you forget, oh no, I'll have a resident who wanted to purchase something, because sometimes they do earn money from working, and you'll forget the paperwork, and so then but you have to own your mistake. Like, I forgot his paperwork, and he was trying to buy something for his son, and I forgot to put it in. So I actually went up to him. I said, I am so sorry. Here's the paperwork. I was like, if you need me to speak to your son's mother and tell you it's going to show up late because I made the mistake, I will do that. I have no issues doing that, because she did call. And she did visit. And he was like, no, it's okay. He goes, I appreciate that, Miss Neysa. So, you own your mistakes, you dot your I's, you cross your T's. I tell anybody when I do my trainings that you have to ensure that even if they sneeze funny, write it down. Because you never know. And the funny thing is, I tell people that, but I'm being so serious, because there are times when you don't know, like the slightest little thing could mean the difference into how things pan out, or the next plan, or how the next step is taken to make sure that individual gets what they need. So I could have a kid that I have the best rapport with, and I drop a pencil and he flips the out, and then I'm like, okay, what did that trigger? And then come to find out, okay, there was something that happened with the pencil once, and that really affected him. So it was the slightest trigger. So I always say, write down everything. Nothing is insignificant. So you never know what the slightest thing could be that is going to make the difference.